Welcome to this Killick Explains video, and welcome to a short guide to the new British ISA. Now, unless you've had your head under the duvet all week, you will know that on Wednesday, Jeremy Hunt stood up at the dispatch box and delivered his spring budget. Long-awaited spring budget, possibly a precursor to an election, although no one knows quite when that will be called. So what I want to do is give you that short guide, all right, look at some of the pros and cons and give you one or two hints and tips on what next. So we had, as part of the spring budget, this British ISA announced. A lot of people thought it might be coming, and sure enough it was announced. Now nothing's been released yet. What's happening is there'll be a consultation period which should run up until the 6th of June. Lots of people in the industry will be asked about their views, I would imagine. And then after the 6th of June, we don't exactly know what's going to happen and when, but it looks like some kind of new British ISA will be launched in due course. So, what do we know? What's still up for debate? Well, on the table at the moment, we know that this would be an extra £5,000 annual allowance per person. So it's on top of the standard adult ISA of £20,000. It's not a kind of instead of or a portion taken out of that main ISA allowance. So it's an extra allowance. What is British is one of the issues I'll come back to in just a moment, okay, but it is focused on British investments, stocks, funds, and so on. And it looks as though the tax breaks for this British ISA will be the same as on the main standard ISA, which already exists. So that means that dividends won't attract income tax within the tax shelter. Any capital gains, that's profits made on any shares or funds within the umbrella, will be protected from capital gains tax. So, on the plus side, fans say this will provide a boost, a much needed boost for UK stocks. There's been lots of anxious speculation about why the UK stock market has not performed as well as some of its international peers, in particular the US market. This measure could go some way towards boosting it, and in particular it could end up boosting small and mid-cap stocks. And in an indication of what could be coming, the FTSE 250 on the afternoon of the budget jumped around 1%, and that's a mid-cap index, okay? And bringing more tax efficient investing opportunities to the table has got to be a reasonably good idea, you'd think, for investors. And it could be a way to refocus their attention on UK stocks after a post-Brexit period where, frankly, the market's been somewhat in the doldrums. But, and there are a few buts, it does add another ISA to the growing list. Okay, so if you're a fan of keeping things simple, adding another £5,000 ISA allowance on top of all the other ISAs available doesn't quite fit the brief. Perhaps the biggest issue, though, and this is why they need the consultation period, is the British idea. Because when you start to break it down, it sounds simple, but let me just throw out a few potential headaches. Will it cover stocks and bonds and funds? Presumably the answer is yes. But if we take stocks, for example, is that all UK listed stocks, even if they earn lots of their revenue overseas? Is it overseas stocks that earn a lot of their revenue here? What happens if a British stock is taken over by an American private equity fund? Is that still British? And what about funds? Is a tracker fund all British? Given that quite a few of the bigger companies in the UK market do earn substantial earnings overseas, which funds are going to meet the definition? All these things need to be hammered out, if you like. And then there's transfers. Can I transfer in to this thing money invested in not British stocks and vice versa, if you like? So quite a few things to sort of hammer out. The other thing is that realistically, people are only going to use this once they've used up their standard adult ISA allowance, because the standard adult ISA is flexible, doesn't require you to buy British, if you like. So it's going to be quite a thin slice of investors potentially that use this. Some data I've seen suggests that only around 15% of eligible people for ISAs as adults actually fill it up to to the top. That's the £20,000 normal allowance. So it's going to be those people that add the 5 on top. And philosophically, are we looking at a government measure where the tax tail wags the commercial investing dog? And what I mean by that is you'd have to be a little bit careful, even as a well-off investor, that you're not chasing a tax break and ignoring the importance of international diversification and getting the risk-return balance across your portfolio correct. So what next? I've just given you a summary of the pros and cons as I see them. Well, given this thing won't launch until the summer at the earliest, let's make sure, I would suggest, we're using up the standard adult ISA allowance of £20,000 per year. You never know what a future government may do to the existing rules. So I'd suggest it's a good time, if you can afford it, to top up your existing ISA before the 5th of April. Don't forget it's use it or lose it. Don't forget about junior ISAs for children. That's £9,000 per adult per year at the current regime of rules, if you like. In terms of the British ISA, we're watching and waiting, basically. We don't know what it's going to look like or when it's going to get launched. But for those people who think they could afford to use it, get ready, keep your powder dry, because there's no harm if it is released in the summer or the autumn in potentially getting organised well ahead of the end of the next tax year, rather than waiting, which is what people often tend to do. So, further information. For background information, other videos on ISAs, junior ISAs and so on, if you've forgotten the mechanics, killick.com/learn. If you'd like to read in a bit more depth about how ISAs work, how investing works, how stocks works, funds work, bonds and so on, then you could go for my How to Invest guide, the blue cover over here, or if you're interested in the tax angle, there is a tax guide. These are the how-to guides, editor@killick.com. And if you want to read about some stuff in the context of planning and our investment experts, if you like, then our quarterly magazine, Confidant, is not a bad bet. And that again is editor@killick.com.